Good morning once again, and thank you for joining us in this segment of the topical discussion on this 15th day of May 2014. My name is Simon Kagwanjala with Doreen Komhanji. And well, it's just a few weeks away to National Budget Day, and government is faced with a tough choice of introducing a basket of proposals to increase its tax base so that they can plug the holes in the face of donor aid cuts. Government is looking towards realizing 18.5 trillion, and that will be the national budget. But among the new tax proposals, there is a new tax on processed milk, which will fetch about 17.97 billion shillings. There is a tax on private schools that will rake in about 30 billion shillings. VAT on supply of new computers, 15.93 billion. An extra 200 shillings on each litre of paraffin, that's bringing in 15 billion. And then diesel, 56 billion. 20% on unprocessed minerals and review royalty regime, that brings in about 8 billion shillings. Of course, plus others, but we're looking at basic essentials that are going to be taxed. How reasonable is this? And two, can it plug the holes? We're joined this morning by an expert who is going to take us through all this to give us her analysis. She's Miss Nelly Busingye, a program officer at SEATINI-Uganda. They have done quite some analysis on the budget for some time on behalf of civil society. Nelly, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning, Nelly. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Could you give us your general feel about the entire budgetary process?
I think for over the few months and years that we've discussed issues to do with the budget, with taxation in general, is that I think government has found very many challenges taxing an informal sector, an informal economy, where people largely rely on the agriculture. Most of the citizens are agriculturalists, and taxing such a sector is very difficult. And so you find that government is constantly relying on taxes that are very easy to collect in order to bridge all those revenue gaps and all that. And for us, the challenges are always that you constantly tax the same people all the time, over and over again.
Would you call this over-taxation?
Well,
or fair taxation?
It's unfair in so many cases, in some cases. But I think it comes down also to the reasons why they are doing some of those, rather making some of those proposals. So sometimes it's just to sit down and say, okay, which particular taxes are they bringing out this time round, and for what reason? And so sometimes because sometimes we're also curious to see, like for instance, if there is a tax, there is increased tax on gambling and betting. For us, that would be, it's okay, because those are those are sectors you want to be able to manage. And one of the importances of taxation is you're able to tax sectors that where you're trying to manage behaviors, or sectors rather issues that bring about where you have constantly citizens relying on those small kinds of businesses that would otherwise are not very productive.
So we can do without them?
We can, because you find there are youth who are relying on such gambling and betting, businesses, and they are not really productive. They spend an entire day in those. So if government wants to tax so that they can minimize on some of those businesses, that I think is important. But if you're having, issues of VAT on essentials,
paraffin in this case.
Yes, for us, we feel that who's going to be burdened the most, because now the people who are low-income earners are the ones going to face, they are going to be hit hard, because then they'll have to spend so much more, and that is an essential for them. Things like that. So sometimes for us the argument is that, have you looked at, is it fair enough? Is everyone on board, across the board, are they being fairly taxed?
When you do a budget analysis for 2014-2015, would you say that Ugandans ought to tighten their belts? This is going to be a harsh budget on them.
It definitely is. Even the last year's budget was very tight because I think government, for me, I understand that government wants to finance with their own revenue about 85% and above, and that is okay because I think it's taxation in itself is the most reliable tool to finance development. But how do you do it? And so for us, we welcome that idea, but it comes down to the nitty-gritties, the processes. How are you going to finance the development, and who's going to be burdened the most? Because if they constantly rely on those taxes that are very easy. I mean, it's very easy for you to go and buy a bottle of water and, the essentials and all that, and they get their money without even you having to know how much has been remitted over there. But it's I mean, how do we...
So, Nelly, if I may ask you, the budget has always been known to be a pro-poor budget. But if we see taxing processed milk, if we see taxing paraffin in this case, would you still agree?
Well, it's supposed to be pro-poor.
But is it?
I mean, it's a question for everyone, I guess, because over the years, we've always had, even within the civil society budget advocacy group, we're always pushing for a pro-poor budget. But I think over time you find, I mean, it becomes a burden just to pay. I mean, taxes, you're supposed to enjoy to pay tax because you see something out of it. But you see the argument, the challenges you're also finding in some of the advocacy work that we're doing is that you're trying to balance the discussion. You're telling people, please pay your taxes, because once you pay your taxes, you're able to finance and see.
Let's look at how realistic the national budget is. Going down the past maybe 5 years, has it become just routine that a budget is read? Come to implementation, there is something lacking.
I think it has become, it's becoming unrealistic most of the time. Why? Because I think government wants to take so much out of the citizens, and the citizens do not see
there's no value for.
And so you find that there is a bit of a lot of money out there, but see, I mean, if you go down even to the communities, people don't link the two, that I've paid my taxes, and so this is what the service has, this has been the service delivered, and so there is that disconnection between those taxes and what we're getting out of the services, and so it is very hard for them to actually raise the revenue that they are going to raise if all these things are not dealt with. You see.
Now, last year we had the public Ugandans had to tighten their pockets after donors cutting aid, while we saw government coming in and saying that it has to fund 85% of the entire budget, and we are still seeing the same case happening in the 2014-2015 financial year. Would you say that Uganda was able to finally, fund itself, going by what happened in the previous budget, this budget that we are doing away without?
I think for me, it's possible that government can fund their budget. It is possible. The reality is whether it can be done.
Going by what happened in this budget, were we able to fund?
I think there were some challenges. There were some challenges. Of course, I think for URL, so they were not able to hit their mark as had been projected. So I guess there are so many challenges where, in terms of what revenue was received. But if it has not happened well over the last year, there are definitely going to be some challenges.
What makes you think
that
government, Uganda is able to fund her own budget when we're looking at the export volume reducing drastically over imports?
Regardless of that, for me, the challenges I've seen with the revenue that comes in is how it is spent. There are challenges of misuse of funds, public expenditure, and all the corruption issues around it. I feel like if some of those things are dealt with, then, because I think as a country, I think we spend more than we actually get. I think if we're able to balance that, we'd be able to finance different sectors. But also you find, there are so many challenges. Why isn't money reaching the health centers? Why isn't money reaching the infrastructural areas? I mean, where does the money go? There are so many loopholes, so many leakages.
Is the impression being created by government? We heard from the spokesperson of the Ministry of Finance that government had cushioned itself well, even by the time donors cut their aid. Is it illusionary in your thinking?
Well, I guess, okay, because there are certain sectors you'll see that most of the funding comes, okay, a good amount of the funding for certain sectors maybe comes in from external funding. But I guess even within government, when they're planning, they'll have priority areas. And so where there are certain sectors that are really funded externally, the external funding can come in. So now the challenge is going to be for those sectors that were relying heavily on external funding, what next for them? So I think they want to be able to bridge that gap, and so there's all these tax proposals coming in and taxing so much of these products and the sector.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Putting a special tax on processed milk, what would be the pros and cons?
I think over the last few months, at least what I've seen in the media, is that they've had challenges with processed milk. I think some people have been adulterating it, and what is on the market is not right for consumption. But then also there is an argument that maybe it will encourage mothers to breastfeed further or more exclusively, but also that is on the assumption that employers are going to give breastfeeding mothers a lot of time to be able to breastfeed exclusively. But in this kind of economy, it is not, people have to work.
Exactly.
It's not possible. So I think it depends on the pros and cons. I can't tell how that should work out, but I'm assuming that if they're after managing, how this processed milk is consumed on the economy, then I think
let's go for paraffin.
It depends. Paraffin, like I said,
yes,
paraffin,
200 extra.
Well, the argument, I think some of the tax auditors and all those people deal with those taxation processes always say that those kinds of shillings are not, they don't impact so much on the cost itself.
Because that was the question: is someone going to feel that impact at the end of the day?
And that's the argument you always have with them, because for them they are talking from their point of view because they probably can afford it, whether there is a 200 shilling, but you're talking about someone who earns maybe 5,000 shillings from their produce every day and they have to use paraffin and all that to prepare food. So I mean it cannot be fair to those who are least advantaged.
How about a tax on private schools that is likely to rake in about 30 billion shillings?
I have a child in a private school, so it means that if they do go ahead and pass this, it means we are going to have to pay so much more.
You're going to feel the burden.
Yes, and the burden comes down to the parents. So how are they going to manage that we do not become so so frustrated with taking our children? Then people are going to
take us into the implementation on private schools, because I found it quite confusing. When they say tax on private schools, what exactly are they looking at?
Well, I think it's how much income. I would assume it's how much income that they generate from this private.
So we should expect a hike in school fees at the end of the day.
It's obvious.
Is it automatic?
That they increase the fees.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and the one thing with private schools, whether there is a tax or not, I'm sure they'll still hike fees. But the implication of this means that the fees will probably even double, because you find someone in primary school now they are paying over 1 million. Someone who is just in pre-primary. I mean, what does that mean if there is a tax?
Have you made a deeper scrutiny into the budget making process? And in case you have, do we see a budget that builds a strong, sound and prosperous economy?
There are challenges. I think
let's
the
first go through
idea
the process. Yes.
I think it's meant to do that. But over the last few years, we're still finding challenges of financing our different sectors, of financing, the different services that the country needs. So I don't know if that's, I mean, for me the challenge is that every single year, even the different proposals that come in, whether it is VAT on this, VAT on whatever, it's still in the same, we're still in that
So
box.
what do you feel ought to be done? Because like you said, they keep taxing the same areas.
The same areas.
Yeah.
I think the government needs to get into the big multi-corporations. Can they bring them, fine, I know they pay, and they'll tell you that, oh, they pay their taxes, you know, they remit the biggest amount of payee, but who's paying the payee? It is you, the worker, on behalf of you know, the company is remitting it on behalf of the employee. So, but there is that, because when you see in some of the graphs, the figures that the URA, you know, puts out there, payee is the one that gives in the most, that remits the most, payee, and then VAT, and so you can see the trend. And then corporate tax is just down there, casino, and all these other big businesses. So for us, the argument has always been, why isn't that? And yet these people make lots and lots of profits. What's the challenge? What's the problem? So
have you tried to interrogate the reasons why government targets the poor person for taxation?
Well, it's I mean, the poor person in these different categories.
For instance, when you look at paraffin, it's targeting the poor person who uses kerosene lamps. When you look at milk,
but you see the taxes they are going to collect are the ones that they can easily get. You know, you have
When you say easily get, what do you mean?
Easily, what I mean is that
they don't want to labor.
They just wanted the easy way out.
You're going to get VAT, you're going to get excise duty and whatnot. You don't have to, I don't have to come to you as URA to get that amount of money. You simply go and buy your product. I mean, these are all consumption taxes. It means you're going to eat or drink one or the other. So I don't have to come to you as an individual.
And you don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. You'll have to buy the water, buy the product, whatever. So you have no option. So that would be the most easy way. And it's not just even in Uganda, world over. It's the most easy way to get. And so they'll constantly rely on such taxes.
Now, there's always been an issue of priorities when it comes to our budget back home, and this time round in this financial year, of course, we've heard of reports like key sectors are likely to get less than what they deserve, looking at cutting the budget, the allocations on education, cutting the allocations on health. What's your take on that?
I think education possibly should be one of the sectors that gets a lot of external funding. So my thinking is, at least from what I've seen in the media and the discussions with the different groups, is that I think that's where the challenge is coming in, is that most of their financing is externally. And yet I would imagine that now that it's externally, government would put in a lot of effort to finance using their own revenue. So I think it's over time, over the next few days, even within the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, is to try to see why government is, you know, how well they can finance some of these sectors that are being challenged by this cut in external funding.
Are there any pros or cons in checking consumption in the name of raising your tax base?
Checking
as in taxing consumption?
Well,
because basically this is about taxing consumption. Petrol, milk, paraffin, it's about consumption.
Yeah, it is. The assumption is that everyone is going to have to buy or use some of those products, one or the other. So I think for us the argument also has always been that, you know, of course it's a challenge. I mean, it's not possible that they'll have, you know, certain groups of people pay this amount of money and certain groups of people pay this other amount of money for this same product. It's a challenge. I think it's just because the rate is flat, it's 18%, and so everyone has to incur that cost.
Well, we would like to get some views from our viewers out there. What's your opinion on the proposals that have been listed by government, the tax proposals? VAT on processed milk, tax on private schools, VAT on supply of new computers, an extra 200 per litre of kerosene, 50 shillings on diesel and petrol, and a levy on several other issues. 0312265321.
And 0312265322. Facebook is NBS Television. SMS is 8009.
We'd like to pick your thoughts. We're joined in the studio by Nelly Busingye. She's been critically looking at the budget making process. And the big question we are looking at is, does Uganda have a choice in the face of increased donor aid cuts? Or these are necessary, these are timely taxes? What's your take? Morning, please. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Solomon.
Hello?
My name is Sharon.
Sorry?
Hello?
Oh, sorry. We don't seem to get you. Morning, please. Good morning.
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Sebo njala jebaliko.
Kale Sebo.
Olekiza kubideno kulekyuko.
Yes, sir.
Kakati bino twatokera bwe twali tusoma budget eriyewedde. Gavumenti yavaayo netugamba tugenda kwekatiza ebitundu 7.9 ku buli 100. N'olwekyo mu gakeerupe butwesonyiwe tubaagalako ebitundu 21 ku buli 100. Netugamba nedda kuno kwekaza kati kankubuulire. Tulemeddwa okubala bannayuganda mu ggwanga lino. Ekyo kankubuulire kubanga twepalapalanya ntitudukanya ebitundu 7.9. Tulemeddwa okuddukanya okulonda kwero kubanga tetweteekako si kyetwali. Kati eggwanga eriba terisobodde na kwongeza abasomesa ng'ate ku mwana liteekako siringi 7. Kakati tuweere. Nze jjo nabadde ngenda mu kyalo nengenda ku mafuta aga kerosene nga ngagula lita 28. Nabadde ndudde okugagula. N'olwekyo kakati bino bagenda kuwooza private schools. Kati amuzadde abadde agamba kijja kgenda mu bonna bakone agenda kuddukirawa. Okitegeeza ng'ate ssente ezibbibwa nnyingi. Esooka olabe bino bye bamaze okubalirira bino ebya ayi. Kandi project efulopede kubanga waleetaawo omukyala nagamba byonna biwedde ye kati tabajjayo ssente mu ggwanika ebigenda mu maaso nga bikola ki. Olwekyo bannayuganda banywere. Abannayuganda banywere n'eno budget temusuubirayo kalungi. Kati kankubuulireyo nga maliriza akantu kamu kali tekiniko. Olaba loko gavumenti zi disitulikiti ziri mu kaabo. Abantu beeyongera actually bajuliririra nti nga babalekera omusolo gw'omutwe kubanga baagujjanga mu bantu baabwe baalinga balina. Kati gavumenti sente bwe yagamba nti eneebawanga buuyi ate nazo tezigendayo ate abantu beeyongera mu bitundu byabwe. Kati olwolwekyo omunywere abantu beerwero mbatumidde. Brenda
bulungi bwana Kiza. Does taxing education create any impact?
I think so.
Other than shifting the burden to the parent?
It's going to make education very expensive, and that means that those who want to access education, because now the challenges have been is that the free education, the UPE, USE, the quality is not, people don't feel it, and then so they are going to they want to shift to private schools. Now they want to put the burden on private schools, so it means accessing quality education will be very difficult.
But again, the assumption would be that if they could afford private schools before, they still can afford private schools, so they're targeting those who can afford. That's going to be the impact.
I don't know how would you rate affording, because someone maybe has budgeted their finances in such a way that they're able to meet certain demands of a certain school. That means they'll have to find other options in the not so quality schools, and
is it about questioned government priorities, like it's been the case with civil society every time we come towards reading the budget?
Whether this is a
priority based.
Well, in this case, it wouldn't be a very good. It wouldn't be a very good thing. And
is there any fear of citizen participation in the national budget?
Well, I think in my view, there's some. It's relative. There are some cases where government has tried to, bring in different citizens, different actors into that discussion. at different levels. So you find that now within the civil society we're able to influence certain processes, influence certain discussions, talk to them about it. The information is accessible on the websites and all that. But I think the person down there hasn't really felt that participation and discussion.
Do the framers of the budget have a clear grasp of the picture on the ground?
Well,
or there is a detachment?
There is a disconnect, because sometimes you go to the communities and people don't know what is taking place.
But
they sort of see things, yes, they just see things happen. They'll tell them now the local governments have said this has been passed and so you should, do this whether you like it or not. So, you find that those are
but again, do you appreciate that government has to widen its tax base?
Yes,
what do you feel should be the targeted areas?
Well, it's relative. I think government wants to widen the tax base fine. Right. For us, the argument is it fair enough for everyone? Is everyone in the tax bucket? I think they need to make sure. I see it in the identification process they are trying to make, because we did put out that as a recommendation over the last few years, that you need to identify everyone and know who is who, because I think there are some people who are avoiding to pay taxes. I think they need to make sure that whoever is in the tax, but everyone pays according to their numbers.
Okay, we'll take another caller. Morning Breeze, hello. Hello? We lost you, sorry. You'll have to call back. 0312 264 Hello?
Mami njala nkulamusinza ssebo. Nsala Dori. Abanya nze Makolo Kavuma mu kibuga ekikulemberwa Lord Mayor ya Kirukwago. Ekisookera ddala okuwulira n'abatuuliriza nti ekizibu ekiri mu ggwanga lya Uganda, abakungu ba gavumenti bakozesa ssente mpitirivu nnyo, ate bo ne balowooza nti ssente ezo bajja zikamulamu ffe abasuubuzi. Kyo nabadde ndaba NBS nga abasuubuzi ababadde baleeta engatte ez'amasanda babadde balinze taxation 100 ku 100. Ekyo mu nsi yonna tekiriiyo. Kati ekizibu kye tulina nti gavumenti ya Uganda efuuse ey'okulowooza okunyagulula abantu beekulembera. Ekintu ekikyamu ennyo nze kye naalirowoozezza, bakendeeze ku ssente ze banyagulula ne ze bakozesa mu kuvuga amamotoka amanene, n'ezo z'owulira nti batoola mu kittavu, oli n'agamba MP mukwate ssente mugende mu bitundu byammwe. Ezo ze zimu ku ssente ezitunyigirizisa omusolo ogwa buli kika. Gavumenti ekimanye tinaffe bannayuganda beerowooza okuggyamu ssente tetuzirina. Kati buli lwoleeta omusolo nga gunyigiriza bannansi oba obagoba mu bizinesi. Mukulu Simon Njala n'omukyala abali mu studio, mugende mukole research ku maduuka mu kibuga. Abantu tebatunda, wabula badduka buli abatunda ebibanja byabwe ajja akole awo mu ngeri etategereka. Ekizibu ekiri mu Uganda kati gavumenti esaasaanya kinene nnyo ku bintu ebitagasa mu nnansi. Walabye ejjuuza abantu e Karamoja nga bafa enjala, e Kasese bafa amataba. Ssente zirina okukozesebwa mu ebyo tezikola, wabula balowooza tubabinika omusolo nazo tuzinyagulwe. Gavumenti ekweye yeetaaga kuva mu buyinza.
Kale siba bulungi Makolo Kavuma. We'll take another caller. Morning Breeze, hello. Yes sir.
Mwami njala
tutunuulira emisolo
nze simanyi za gavumenti eno okimanyi batuuse n'okusolooza zikabuli entaana bagenti waki mwakomangu tuwa omusolo ntaliko mu siteeta busiriku nali neze kusinkana mwali Museveni nendaba kakati empanbuuzi omukozi kikapeene ng'enyirira okusinga bannayuganda nanga tugiteekako 75,000 buli basooke bakendeeze ku ssente ezigenda mu state house. Omwami Museveni bamuwa ssente olunaku zaasaasaanya ku bagenyi nga zisobola okujjanjaba enguudo nga 150. Ssente zigenda mu state house ozipanga okuva e Nakasero ne zikoma paka Gomba nga zirireyo. Ezo nazo basooka bakendeeza. Mwami Museveni yayonoonye ssente mpitirivu nnyo ekitabangawo. Mwami Museveni ebyafaayo bigamba bapulezidenti abaasooka sente zebakozesa mu myaka 8 Mwami Museveni azikozesezzayo omuntu omubwati sente mpitirivu nnyo Mwami Museveni zakuirako. Mwami Museveni sente aziwadde abaana be, aziwadde bakotomi be, aziwadde bazzukulu be, aziwadde baganda be bona.
Bisolo Isma webalire ddala siba bulungi munnaffe. We'll take another caller. Morning please, good morning.
Hello.
We're still trying to make sense of the proposals on essentials. Morning please, hello.
Hello.
Yes please.
This is Jeffrey.
Yes, we can hear you. Good morning.
The government, they have stolen from the what they are the money from the donor fund, so there's nothing they can steal. So now let Uganda fill that thing in the thing so that they know the ignorant and what.
Do we need to look up to donors anymore?
Well, they have, I mean, there's support that they give that, is essential. There are benefits. I mean, some of them have helped construct hospitals, construct schools. So sometimes I'm not very quick to dismiss their support. However, it depends also on how. I mean, do we rely 90% of the economy?
If we are realistic, can Uganda meet 60% of her budget under the current environment?
It's a challenge. I think what the callers also, because I wanted to go back to, I think the second last caller, about corruption and public expenditure. You can see the arguments now. You cannot isolate the two. If you're going to talk about issues of tax revenue and raising the budget beyond 60 or less, I think for me, if people are going to see a connection with all those issues, is how are we spending what we have already? If we are not spending it in the right way, are we able to receive or to generate?
Are there any mechanisms to ensure budget discipline? Because on several occasions we've seen government going back seeking supplementary budgets, yet actually the tax base is seemingly narrow.
They need to spend. I mean, I don't even know how to put it. It comes, you as an individual, I think, when you're dealing with budget discipline.
Yeah, but again, the fact remains that there are lots of gaps. Because at the end of the day, they still go back for supplementary budgets. So what ought to be done about that?
I mean, they have their reasons. I'm not going to get into the details of why they go back. They go back for supplementary budgets. The issues of public expenditure are very pertinent. I think people are tired of seeing constant misuse of resources. I mean, if they're spending a lot of money on paying off salaries, wages for, I don't know, the RDC, the deputy RDC, you're paying, and they're more or less doing the similar work. And then you have about 300 something MPs, you've bought for them cars, you've bought for them iPads, you've bought, I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
It's about cutting down on the expenditures.
Let them cut down the expenditure, let them deal with the corrupt issues and the leakages. And then from there, then we can start talking about...
Now, Nelly, what's civil society's argument on taxation?
Well, it has always been, for us, I'll just give what we have always talked about. Even within SEATINI-Uganda, we do not discourage people from paying taxes. We actually encourage people to pay taxes. For us, the argument comes down to is how fair is it across the board? Is everyone paying their fair share of taxes? Are these corporations paying their fair share of taxes? Who bears the most burden? And so we're always in arguments with government is that they need to find other ways of raising revenue without constantly burdening the same people over and over again. And so that the discussion continues because there are all those challenges.
So
as we've talked
could we
about.
say that you're perturbed by the unfairness in tax collection? Collection,
but also it comes down
to
collection levy, but also issues of implementation. How is it administered? I mean, the traders, you've already heard how they complain about how those tax issues are implemented in their different areas. That is also an issue, but also where the money goes, the issues of utilization and allocation. Is everyone seeing value for money? Are there tax leakages? Yes. Is there a revenue that is not reaching the required places? Yes. And why is that? Well, it all comes down to the issues of misuse, corruption, and all that.
All right, we're still looking at the budget analysis, looking at some of the proposals that are being fronted by government. At the NRM caucus in Chankwanzi, they recommended, they resolved, or rather they wrote a list of taxes that would be introduced, including even the reintroduction of cooperative bank. Does it make sense?
I think, okay, at least from what we've seen in the different, within the civil society budget advocacy group, I think the government wants to revive cooperative societies, the circles and all that. I think it's a good move, because I think there is a lot of people can actually benefit from those circles, especially people who have very little income. You put your resources together and you're able to, manage them and, do all kinds of things.
Would it help people fill the budget?
Yeah, I guess it would in some way. But I don't know about the cooperative bank issue. It also depends on how it is going to be managed, because some people don't want to put money in banks. They'd rather have their money under the bed and spend it, because there are all these, it's all a burden that comes down with all the banks and everything, and their different processes. So it's relative.
What would be your general take on the people's reaction towards the budget? Because like we said, one would say that they are detached from the budget. It seems to be an alien kind of budget, going down to the last person. Do you feel that it's about, it being alien? Are they ignorant? Are they simply laid back? Is it an I don't care attitude? Generally, what's your take?
I think Ugandans we've become very, I don't know if the word is complacent, where we just, whatever comes, whatever goes, and so we reached a point whereby we're just waiting for things to happen, come what may, okay. And it's a very dangerous thing, because then it means whatever comes, they'll just go.
We just say that government at the end of the day takes advantage of such an attitude.
They take advantage.
How can government divorce this budget from politics? Because people are now looking more towards politics than actually what's in there.
Is it possible? I doubt it is possible, because you can even see what the different callers bring. They come down to the political issues, the issues of corruption, the issues of expense. I mean, I don't think you can disconnect. It is in most cases. It is politicized.
It is a politicized budget.
I think it benefits those who the powers that be. They're the ones who decide on all these issues. I mean, if some of these resolutions are in caucuses, I mean, those? Have they gone to their communities and asked them if this would work, if they can spend money to go and...
Is it regular or irregular that budgetary proposals can be drawn by caucus?
It's new to me, at least. Over the last few years, it wasn't happening as... because this time I think it's a strategy now to own within that certain group of people. I think it's not right, because the rest of us now feel it's their budget. So they're the ones who, have decided.
What civil society's stake in the budget? Or you're just on the fence?
Well, I guess some people are on the fence, others feel it is not proper enough. I think we are also waiting for, because there is also a process, because what happens is that these proposals will come, and so we'll have different discussions with all these policymakers, but there'll also be a process when the budget has been read, because then we also have to discuss the issues that have been presented, and then also discuss with the different actors what will work and what doesn't.
When you look at the attitude towards budgets, do you really feel Ugandans ought to look forward to the budget?
I think they should start looking forward to it. Whether they like it or not, the burden is going to fall on them. Because under the circumstances, we'll have to finance this budget, whether we like it or not. So they need to take interest. They need to get up and understand what these issues are about.
But do they have a say in this?
They should have a say. I think if the voices, I mean, I think if we have, because what we've been talking about us being complacent and just taking things, I think if there is pressure from citizens themselves, because that is what also within the civil society budget advocacy group, they're trying to not make it just a CSO kind of thing, so that even different actors, farmers, wherever.
Civil society seems to be more preoccupied with fault finding than digging any good in the budget. Tell us any good that you see in the budget.
I think for me, like I said in the beginning, for us we support financing development from our own resources, and we'll even support government, clearly, encouraging people to pay their taxes. We're not telling them not to pay. We see that government is trying as much as possible to finance development in a sustainable way with our own revenues.
So where's the problem?
Still comes down to all these issues we've been talking about. How fair is it? Is it us, the people who get a certain amount of income every day that is sustainable, that can pay for these these products, or is it other communities down there felt? Do they have a
okay, how can Ugandans cope with this kind of budget?
How can they cope? Well, I think we have to work very hard for starters.
With the high levels of unemployment,
with the high, yes, and I think
a few economic activity opportunities here and there.
Yes, and I think also another challenge government has is that have they given different groups an opportunity to. If you have given the economy an opportunity to get more income, then maybe you can be able to tax.
Yes.
But now I constantly have the same amount of pay every month, and so the standard of living is going to increase. School fees will increase, and so there is that disconnect. We are still we don't have business opportunities per se that would give us enough income, or we're not able to get income that would sustain us, as an individual. So how are we able to pay the taxes in that case?
So if I may ask, Nelly, how different is the 2014-2015 budget going to be from this ending financial year?
Yes.
What should we expect? Is there any reasons to be excited or?
Well, I'm looking forward to the budget day, that actual day when they read that, because what I see also, the proposals are not so different from, they have introduced a few.
Is it copy and paste?
More or less, they try to increase there and the same thing. Then what will happen is that they remove a tax on a previous year, then bring it back the next year, that kind of thing. So it's going around over the same thing,
All right, let's pick a few more calls. We're still seeking your opinion to a set of proposals by government for the national budget 2014-2015. It's just a few weeks away. What's your take? Morning breeze, hello? Hello? 0312265321 and 0312265322. Hello?
This is Moses Kazua calling from Nakawa.
Hi Moses, we can hear you.
Yes, what I'm saying, that we have in fact a problem. For example, if people even start or begin saying that, even phones are supposed to be taxed, we have 17 million people with phones, without minding that these people buy their time, these phones are taxed before they are bought, and you get people like Ishmael Vega. The other time when he went to media center, he was given 500,000. When he went to State House, he was given 4 million. And you wonder, they are taxing us to give people like Ishmael Vega money, and they are the people coming out to complain. So this one is to be stopped, they should be giving them money. But if they tax gambling, there's no problem with gambling. Because this money is not from Indians. It's money collected from Ugandans. Then the few get some of this money. So if they tax gambling and the other thing, cigarettes, alcohol, for us we have no problem with that. But we should also encourage the government to put money in agriculture. Let our oil be processed, so that the money from oil is put in agriculture and infrastructure, so that we go in Kamata future, there people will be able to pay tax. Thank you.
Okay. Is it inevitable for government to increase taxes?
It's inevitable. I think so. I think it's not even in Uganda,
Okay.
only everywhere.
What would be the solution to circumvent the trend of increasing taxes all the time?
Well, I think what government needs now to do is to make sure that everyone, like just about everyone is in the tax bracket. Because I think over the next few years, they'll constantly rely on increasing taxes if they're going to match these gaps we've got with budget, the donor cuts and all that. So is everyone, because what I'd like to see is that everyone pays, because now they're talking about, someone has just brought about the issue of agriculture. But you see, agriculture is the most difficult sector to tax, because you can't tell, how much someone has received, bringing in, because there are people who are getting a lot of money from the agriculture sector who don't pay us. Is there a particular tax they say that if you get this income, are people actually remitting their profits? Are they, saying that this is how much I receive? I've not seen that happen. So,
if government curtailed its own expenditure, would it in any way affect or give a sense of relief to the citizens?
I think it would in a great way, because I think even you as an individual, when you cut on your expenses, it does give you relief when you're budgeting for your monthly or yearly expenses, doesn't it? So I think it does give a great relief. It means that if they cut on public expenditure, that money that they would have spent, they would not have to impose so many other...
Is public expenditure in Uganda that alarming?
I think it is. I mean, it is. Surely it is. I mean, all these reports we always see in the media, everywhere. I mean, sometimes I wonder why we need all the 300 something MPs. I mean, are we that badly off that would need us all that? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Nelly, if I may ask you, do the framers of this budget understand the people they are budgeting for, the people they're planning for? Do they have an idea of what they're doing?
It's probably in terms of that. I don't want to belittle whoever framed the budget, but I think they need to put in a lot of effort in getting everyone to participate in the process, even those people down there at the grassroots. I think there is a bit of a disconnect.
Okay, if I could take you back to the question we asked our viewers, how can government plug the holes in the face of donor aid cuts?
It still comes down to what the viewers are saying. The issues of corruption, tax, revenue leakages. There is money that just goes that we do not see. Whether it is money that gets out of the country that they do not receive in the tax bracket or the revenue basket, we need to deal with some of those issues very critically. Expenditure is too high. Corruption is, I mean, there is a lot of money that is being misused. We need to deal with all those things. But because the more money they get, I don't think if we don't deal with those things first, we'll probably not be able to.
Nelly Busingye, thank you very much for joining us this morning as we take a quick look at what's in the budget ahead of the budget reading day 2014-2015. It's about a few weeks away. So we'll still continue, of course, looking at the budget. Today we've looked at taxation, whether indeed the basket of proposals makes sense. Thank you for your thoughts, thank you for your opinion, and thank you for watching NBS television. The Morning Breeze continues. Have a lovely day.